Hey YouTubers! My name is Zoe and welcome to my channel all about wildlife. Today we're going to be talking about bats. Now I know many people don't like bats and they find them creepy and they're featured in a lot of horror films, but today I'm hoping to talk about many of the myths that are associated with bats and get rid of that fear that all bats turn to blood-sucking vampires that are just out to suck your blood. Speaking of vampires though, I have a question for all of you. True or false? Vampire bats are real? We'll answer this question at the end of the video, but for now, let's get started. There's about 1,240 different species of bats in the world. Only about 39% of those species live in North America. First, let's start by answering the question, what are bats? Bats are small, nocturnal, flying mammals. They are the only mammals that can fly, and unlike birds that have feathers on their wings, bat wings have a thin membrane that stretch out to help them fly through the night sky. One question many people have about bats is why do they hang upside down? Again, unlike birds, bat wings don't have enough power to just take off. Bats hang upside down, and when they need to fly, they let go of whatever they're hanging onto, then they open up their wings and glide for a little bit, then they start flying. At the top of their wings, they have little thumbs. They use these thumbs to climb and crawl in caves and on trees. Bats also have been seen using their thumbs to scratch their very large ears. Now on to the myths. One famous myth is that bats are blind. You might have heard the saying, as blind as a bat, but bats aren't actually blind. Bats become active at night, and much like other animals, they can't see in the darkness. Bats see by using something called echolocation. Echolocation is where they make a high-pitched screeching sound. That sound travels, then bounces off any solid objects, and goes back to the bat's large ears, thus letting them know what's in front of them. Another famous myth is that bats like to fly into your hair. Bats like to eat bugs, such as mosquitoes. If you've ever been outside at night in the summertime, you probably know how much mosquitoes like to annoy people and feed on them. Mosquitoes will fly around people's heads, trying to find a good place to land. Bats use echolocation to hear where the mosquitoes are, but they can't see your head in the darkness. So when they go to swoop in and get the mosquitoes, they tend to get caught in your hair. Now, if a bat does get stuck in your hair, you don't have to worry too much because the myth that all bats have rabies is also false. Like many mammals, bats can have the rabies virus, but many of them actually don't. Only about 6% of bats actually have the virus. But 90% of humans that get rabies is caused by bats, but that's only like 3 people per year. Now before you freak out, there is a cure for rabies. If a bat has bitten you, it's best to go tell your doctor, and they can prescribe a medicine that prevents rabies. If you like to go cave exploring that has bats, one thing to be careful of is bat feces. Bat feces not only smells terrible, but can also carry many dangerous fungi that can harm humans. One famous one is histoplasma, which can cause histoplasmosis. Histoplasmosis is a lung infection that can cause symptoms of coughing, trouble breathing, headaches, and if not treated, can lead to death. If you go into a cave that has bats, it's suggested that you wear a mask to protect your lungs. Another thing people say about bats is that bats are flying rats. Bats are actually in their own family called Chiroptera. But if you look at the evolutionary scale, bats are actually closely related to shrews, which is in the rodent family, along with rats. But they are also closely related to primates and humans. So before you start calling them gross rats, just remember, you're actually related to them too. The last thing I want to talk about is white nose syndrome. You might have heard of scientists finding bats with white stuff on their nose. The first report was in 2006 in New York, where a little brown bat was found with white stuff on its nose. The white stuff turned out to be a fungus that grows and feeds on bats. It starts to grow on the bats while the bats are hibernating in the wintertime. Bats will hibernate in large colonies in caves. When they are hibernating, they are in a very deep sleep and they don't even realize the fungus is on them. Now, before the bats start hibernating, they have to collect a lot of fat to keep them warm and well fed throughout the wintertime. But the fungus will take all the food that is stored in the fat. So when spring comes around, the fungus has covered their noses, their eyes, and their wings. The bats are starved and die before they can even fully wake up. The fungus can spread really quickly, and bats can spread the fungus from one bat to another. And since they hibernate in large colonies, bats tend to get the fungus all at once. It's also suspected that the fungus can live in the soil in caves. If people walk in a cave that is infected, then walk to a cave that is not infected, this can spread the fungus. Since 2006, the fungus has spread from Canada down through to Texas, and millions of bats have died because of the fungus. Luckily, there is a cure that can help the bats and stop the fungus. There's also a lot of support groups and scientists trying to find ways to get rid of the fungus for good. If you wish to help the bats and get their numbers up, you can actually get something called a bat house. Much like a birdhouse, you put it up outside and the bats will rest in it during the daylight hours. It also might help keep the numbers of mosquitoes around your house down. And that's it for bats. Did you get a chance to think about the question from earlier? True or false? Vampire bats are real. If you said true, you'd be correct. There really are vampire bats. Unlike the movies though, they don't turn into blood-sucking vampires. They live in Central and South America. They got their names because they have long fangs and they like to suck the blood from other animals. Mostly, they like to suck the blood from birds, and they'll rarely attack humans. And that's it. If you liked my video, give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions or you want me to talk about another animal, let me know in the comments below. And I hope to see you again.